Hey everyone, thanks for dialing in today. This is Manoj from Cloudera. We're here for a meetup today, future of data and analytics in hybrid and multi-cloud. We have a series of topics for today, so I thought I'll just kick it off with a agenda, and then I'll hand over to the rest of the presenters in the call today. So in a nutshell, what we'll do is we'll just kind of kick it off with an overview presentation. We'll do a 5 to 10 minutes, a background discussion on data and analytics and cloud in general. Once we do that, we will jump into an open discussion on all things that I just mentioned. We have a couple of exciting speakers with us today. So they will have a very interactive session where we'll have no questions barred type discussions today. And we expect that to go on for about 30 minutes. We'll also take in questions from the audience through all the community channels and so on. And of course, there will be a demo. This will be towards the end of the session, and then we'll wrap it up from there. So let me start. I think it should be a rule by now, but any presentation about data should always begin with some data points, I guess. But here's a historical trend with some future projection of data volume in zettabytes. Needless to say, I know I'm stating the obvious. You're probably thinking the same, thanks to Captain Obvious. But long story short, right? So the number of data sets, the volume of data, the number of analytical applications that users develop on it has increased historically, is continuing to increase. So on a serious note, there are two key tectonic shifts that we see in the way we process data, and that is happening at record pace over the last 10 years, and we see the trend moving forward. If I were to summarize that and put it into two simple points, there are two, right? The first one is analytics for the data lifecycle. The second one is basically hybrid cloud data platform. We'll take a deeper look at both in the next couple of slides, and then we'll also have a discussion around the two topics. First, let's just jump into what we call as analytics for the data lifecycle. So basically, if to look at the future, we also have to take a slight look back into the past. If you look around the year 2010, most of the data, most of the use cases on top of the data was mostly, you have a raw set of data, you want to create a refined set of data. The kind of processing workloads on top of it was mostly enrichment, ETL, data engineering type workloads that were kind of dominating all the workloads in there. The applications that we built were relatively simple data engineering workloads. They were mostly filters and some enrichment to the data. But then a few years later, around 2015, users decided in what was once called as a data lake. Now the definition is keeping on changing. But then once there was a central place where all the data was consolidated, there was a need to extract value from the data. So business analysts wanted to run SQL on top of the data. They wanted to create a data warehouse or a data mart or reports on top of the same set of data. After that, users wanted to run ad hoc SQL analytics on the data. We also saw developers building operational database to serve data for online applications. Imagine it's a call center and you're doing a random call. You want the data to be operationalized and responding in milliseconds, right? So these kind of use cases kind of started growing in around the year 2015. But in the last few years, last 5+ years, I guess, the trend has skyrocketed. The kind of use cases expanded a lot more. Streaming engineers have reduced, the latency to get insights. They refactored a lot of batch application pipelines into streaming application pipelines as well, or they augment and have both the kind of pipelines together. DBAs have, kind of refactored the data warehouses, modern, data warehouses, cubes on data, and so on and so forth. That started, we started building those. And then data scientists came along and we started building predictive models on the data to find patterns and so on and so forth. If I were to summarize this slide, the volume of workloads, the type of workloads are increasing. And today, a business use case is an intricate intertwining of multiple of these types of use cases. If I just double click and go a little bit deeper into these, the data lifecycle typically consists of 5 key pillars, right? So things from collection of data. It could be batch, it could be streaming. You collect the data, then you enrich the data, you create a warehouse, report on top of it, create visual dashboards on it. Then you serve the data, operational use case like I was talking about, and then you run predictions. We all love taxes, I guess, or no. But generally, when organizations build something like this, there is some sort of a tax between each of these pillars. So when I build a streaming workflow and then run data engineering on top of it, or when I want to report on it, like from one piece of the lifecycle to the other, there is a tax in terms of investment in terms of time or people, or that kind of an integration tax is usually prevalent. And things like security and governance layer, lineage, and automation are the things that can make all of these easier and simpler to manage. So any business use case in general, I think these are some complex intertwining of these different types of workloads that form that. If I were to go to the next key trend, next key change, it's definitely cloud, hybrid cloud. There are many organizations who are migrating to cloud, they are augmenting with cloud, they are extending to cloud, they are expanding to cloud, and hybrid cloud is really the future where we see a lot of applications going on. But another reverse trend is also kind of underpinning that, right? So it's not just that applications are moving to cloud, but users are also expecting cloud-like experiences, cloud-like use cases, cloud-like behavior on-prem as well. So when we call hybrid cloud, it's not just a legacy platform like a traditional data warehouse plus a cloud platform, but then it's modern cloud principles that are available on the cloud, public cloud, and a private cloud. So if I go into some of the design principles in a hybrid world, there are a few of them. There are many of them actually, but we'll summarize a few of them. Right. The first ask is always about disaggregation, or breaking down your software stack, creating a plug and play, easy to expand platform. So it typically means the most common ones talked about are storage and compute. I want to segregate my storage and compute so I can scale them independently. But then a lot of people forget about things like, how do I scale my security? How do I, if I were to expand from data engineering to data warehousing, what happens to my security? Can I just plug and play and expand that security model? Can I extend the same model to do that? Those kind of underlying requirements come into play when we talk about a disaggregated software stack. In addition to that, different type of users come in. So today, a data scientist will come in, tomorrow a data warehouse user will come in, next year a developer will come and run data engineering jobs. So this disaggregated software stack should be able to solve all their needs, all their business use cases, and so on. The second one is large scale. We talked about the data volumes, we talked about the type of workloads in there, but also this could be in the form of running it on virtual machine, running it on Kubernetes, running it on cloud provider A, cloud provider B or C. All these types of large scale applications come in. A third design principle is being open standards. It's not just open source, but also being open standard, open APIs, community scale platforms. And last but not least, evolving ecosystem. We talked about like last 10 years, how many different types of analytics came in, how many products have you seen in the market, right? So we also see this trend growing. So independently scaling various functions like machine learning, data warehousing, a data lake, operational DB, et cetera, come into the next space. So finally, summarizing this, I think there are everything that we talked about so far. Generally, we talk about any tier, any data, any platform, any cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud is kind of the first key pillar. The second one is the data lifecycle. The third one is security and governance that connects the entire data lifecycle. And last but not least, open standards and open source, and being open lets you open your doors to multiple types of technologies and so on. With that, I want to introduce the two presenters we have today. We'll have a very interactive discussion and a detailed discussions with some of the hard questions answered on the key industry trends and of course, demos, as I said. So joining me today is Welly on one side. He's the co-founder and CTO at SciFin Technologies. Welly is currently working on quantitative trading, liquidity provider, HFT on crypto assets. He has a very long resume, by the way. He previously worked in enterprise banking, oil and gas with over 15 years of experience. Avid learner and believes that data will define our future. So we have a lot to hear from him today. On the other side of the ring, we have Shashank Sharma. He's our cloud solutions architect. He works for Cloudera. He's a technocrat and has worked across various industries and worked with large organizations, helping them devise data and cloud strategies. So Welly, I have my first question for you. I see you have a lot of experience in various industries, including startups and banks. Can you explain what are some of the differences you have seen in the approach to data engineering governance in each company, each organization, each industry that you worked in?
Okay, thanks, Manos. I have to say that you have a really interesting presentation there, all about the cloud native stuff and era, and it's really cloud era, right? So it's very interesting for me right now. So not only because of cat, right? Right. Sorry, just got distracted there. Back to your question. There's a lot of difference between a lot of company that I've been through. It's like oil and gas is all about devices, sensor, and everything, right? Banking is all about human, like customer satisfaction, experience, and data governance. Everything is under control by regulation and everything. So it's a lot of fun, different kind of thinking. And right now, I'm back onto the finance, but it's mostly on the cryptocurrency market, right? So we are providing liquidity, and a lot of stuff need also to aggregate from multiple sources, and we do some auditing also. Even the crypto regulation is not that finalized yet, but we are starting to see a huge investment bank coming into the crypto. So it will be a good fund, and it will be regulated pretty soon. So we don't have any excuses not to do data governance right now. So yeah, but from my what I'm saying, yeah, my experience, Cloudera is very near and dear to my heart because I have a lot of experience also in the Cloudera, previously in the banking industry also, and but it's like when I touched Cloudera first time, it's like CDH5, so it's currently is CDP, and it's looking very great. So I would love to know more about that, and it's very interesting because it's a lot of difference right now. So I have a lot of question, but I think you can answer, or Shashang maybe.
Thank you, Welly. I want to pass the baton back to Shashank to give you an
Okay,
answer there.
cool.
Thanks, Manoj. Hi, Welly.
So one question. Are you ready? Why we
100%.
need to migrate to CDP public cloud? What's the difference? What's the difference between the old on-premise stuff and what's different? I'm dying to know. So
Good question. A lot of customers, when we speak with them, they often ask, why do we need to upgrade to CDP public cloud, and what's the difference? What are we losing on? One of the major differences that Manoj pointed out in his deck when he was talking about CDP in general was the security layer, when he talked about what happens if I have a requirement where I want to add a different component for a different business unit. For example, I want to introduce data warehousing for a different business unit. I can do that. I can buy more nodes. I can get the hardware. I can get the Cloudera license. But what about the security? Security then becomes a manual effort, and you have to go through iterative cycles of making sure that security and governance that you had on an existing set of infrastructure is also carried ahead to the next set of infrastructure that you're buying for a specific use case. So that's one. CDP does that very efficiently. It provides a single pane of security, governance, audit, lineage, metadata, and it's pretty much built in inside the whole ecosystem. So you connect one service, and if you connect 10 services, all of them are tied with that single pane of security and lineage governance. Apart from that, one major difference, as you mentioned, you were initially involved with CDH5.
yep.
A lot of times, your workload grows and your requirements grow. And one question that is often asked is, how do I add more machines because I'm running out of capacity? Uh, so that was a very long cycle, and people who come from typical data engineering background or any IT organization for that matter would have experienced. It's a long cycle. You go back to your business units, you talk to them about this, and it takes 6 to 8 months to procure. In CDP, that's not the case, especially CDP public cloud. It has the capacity to basically scale up, scale down based on requirements. gives you that brilliant agility that you need to run your business units, the business use cases. And one other major difference is, which is kind of connected with the same one, is in a HTTP, CDP, or a typical Hadoop world, you would have storage and compute sitting together. So you could run out of CPU or memory or RAM, but you still have enough space on your machines. But then what do? You still have to buy more hardware just to meet the requirement for one particular set of requirements. Whereas in CDP, storage and compute are totally decoupled. So your storage sits on one of the favorite cloud providers that you have. Compute sits on the same cloud provider. They basically only talk to each other when there's a requirement. You don't have to scale your compute requirements if you don't have a requirement to scale up your storage. So those are pretty important concepts that CDP brings in. A very different way of looking at how you would do your data science, how would you do your data engineering, how would you run machine learning models. So that's what I think CDP is all about.
Cool, cool, cool. So, the one thing I kind of interesting from your point is basically you said that it's easy to scale up, and when in on premise it's easier. It's not easy to scale up, but it's more even harder to scale down. What do you think about that?
100%. So,
Yeah.
a lot of times, I'm sure we all have gone through situations where suddenly there's a requirement for 10 extra nodes, the extra nodes are procured, the licenses are sorted out. But then there's a new technology that comes in, or a new business unit that comes in, and maybe the technology gets obsolete. You want to basically not utilize those 10 machines because of XYZ reasons. Now, how do I remove them from this particular setup, and what do I do with these decommissioned nodes? And more often or not, these decommissioned nodes just simply lie in your data center without ever being utilized, and that's happened with pretty much all major big organizations. CDP definitely helps you in solving this problem. So you only use, or you only pay for what you use. If you use 10 machines, you pay for 10 machines. If you use 5 machines, you only pay for 5 machines. So it not only gives you the agility to scale your workloads, but it is also very cost effective in terms of your requirements and your business use cases.
Cool, cool. So how can I migrate? Because we have a separate analytics system right now, but it's not that like a critical data because we want to analyze. It's quite big. How can we utilize CDP on cloud? Any migration technique or something? That's very interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, so CDP comes out of the box with something called a replication manager. Now, replication manager is one of the most important components of CDP public cloud. Now, what replication manager's total concept is basically not just migrating your on-premise data onto the cloud, again, any cloud of your choice, but along with that, it also migrates your underlying metadata with the
Mhm.
data itself. So the metadata gets migrated, the data gets migrated, and in the legacy CDH world or an HTTP world, you would either be using Sentry or Ranger policies to have security around the data itself for governance and security purposes.
Right.
Replication Manager not only just migrates the metadata and the data, it also migrates your security policies from an on-prem world onto CDP public cloud.
Right.
So having said that, it's like you basically just have to let replication manager know what kind of data, metadata, and security policies you want to migrate, and it migrates everything. So all you got to do now is bring in your code to run those particular jobs that you were running. So it's as simple as you pick your code from one particular system, put it on CDP public cloud, and you basically start running it from day one.
Right, right. So it's interesting. So there's no almost no code changes. If my code already running on the Cloudera on-prem, I can just take the Spark code into the cluster upside. Right.
Pretty
That's
much,
it.
pretty much. That's
Cool,
exactly
cool, cool.
the whole idea of a replication manager.
Nice, nice. So how it compares with managed service, because we already even if we are using Azure, our AWS, and also GCP, they already have a bunch of managed service. What's the Cloudera provide there? What's the unique proposition from Cloudera?
So Cloudera also has a bunch of managed services. We call them data services. So for the most common use cases, if I just talk about data warehouse or machine learning slash data science, for data engineering, for data visualization, for an operational database like a HBase, Cloudera provides these managed services. So customers or users don't really have to worry about configurations or managing the underlying infrastructure. All they have to do is click a button, provision that particular service, and start putting in their code or their query or their machine learning models on top of it. All Pretty much all these data services that I just spoke about, they are all Kubernetes based services. They scale up, scale down based on your resource consumption, and they all are, as I said, they are all Kubernetes based. So it not only, like, if I just talk about data engineering for that matter, so it's Kubernetes based. It's got Spark 3 in it. It's got a integration with Airflow. It's got
Mhm.
unicorn integration. So
Right.
it's perfectly fits a requirement wherein I just want to click a button. I want the service to be enabled for me, and all I want to do is bring in my code and start running it from day one. That's exactly what these 4 or 5 data services do, which are Cloudera managed.
Wow, wow, interesting. So basically, I don't need to stitch each component, right? I
Not
just
really. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, not
that's
at all.
that's because that's the problem, because when I'm using a cloud services, I need to stitch, because this access control is not compatible with, it's a lot of headache. So yeah.
Absolutely. And even when you do that, even if you had a service like this, we come back to the original problem. How do I then make sure that my security, governance, lineage, metadata
Right.
is also stitched back with this new service? So
Mm.
as I said earlier, Park Welly, any service that you spin up on a CDP public cloud, it inherits all the security, governance, lineage, metadata from that SDX layer, which we have as the backbone or the brain of Cloudera public cloud.
Right, right. Because for enterprise level, it's very important about data governance, and
Absolutely,
we
absolutely.
need stability. We
Yeah,
don't want to do a lot of mundane tasks or everything like infra stuff. We just need to focus on the business. So I think it's great. Thank you for
yeah.
explaining, Sancham.
No problem.
Knock, knock. I'm here to disturb a bit. Pakwali, there were a lot of excellent questions from you and excellent answers from Shashank. But I thought I'll just interject, flip it up, and ask a question to you. You're a community leader for data engineering in Indonesia. You
Yeah.
work with AWS community builders. You do a lot of community-oriented work in Indonesia, right? And also in the region in ASEAN. So, what do you think about the current progression with technology in general in solving the business needs and solving uh, business needs with optimal investment, cloud, and so on and so forth? What are your thoughts around that?
Cool, cool. Interesting question. So, I always follow the latest technology about the data, especially, and a lot of jargon like house, data observability, and new stuff. Sometimes can make people confused, right? Because a lot of tools, fragmentation, silo, everything is give us a lot of choices, but sometimes it confuses us. So sometimes people confuse which, wow, this is the new stuff, but they don't consider, is this stable enough? How the security, the patch, and everything, the maintainability. So open source is always faster, right? It's this fastest, but enterprise need stability. That's one thing that people or new generation need to know. Enterprise brings stability for the country, so yes, it needs to be maintained well. And not every shiny thing is the good thing, especially if we don't have a governance, monitoring, production, scalability issue. It's become headache, right? So basically, my journey right now in the community, I need to bring the like a proper mentality to the new data engineering and data engineering community, so people don't get confused, right? What's which which part is playing around, which part is productionalized, right? So cloud is for everyone, for sure. Everyone is very mad about cloud right now, especially in Indonesia right now. We have a lot of cloud coming into the town, so more choices, but we need some kind of a guideline or consideration on how to bring the best of our knowledge right now into the cloud without moving too much part, something like that.
Makes sense.
So, Manoj, yeah, you already interrupted. So I want to ask Xiaxiang because I already told you a lot of questions, right? So I'm sorry. so I want to know, because a lot of people in my community want to know what's the basic skill needed to use Cloudera, because a lot of enterprise in Indonesia using Cloudera. So they want to know, to enter the enterprise setup, what do I need to know, which kind of skill I need to improve so I can be relevant into the future when I move into the cloud, especially CDV. Do you have any suggestion for youngster or something?
Uh, it's so just like any organization you pick up, Parkwelly, be it in any part of the world, you obviously have a lot of people who have common set of skills. In a typical CDH HTTP world, you would expect people to know a bit of SQL, a bit of Spark, a bit of Scala, a bit of Python, maybe Java to some extent. It's pretty much the same stuff in CDP as well. You don't need any special skills. You don't need to go learn any other language. Of course, now if you do that, that's just a totally entirely could be a human choice. Maybe they want to learn something and implement a specific thing in a specific language. But in general, if I have to go back and look 5 years from now, whatever skills people had is exactly can be utilized in the current world of CDP public cloud. Um, an icing on the cake would be if you have a good set of people who understand cloud in general.
Hmm.
So maybe how different cloud providers work. What are some of the services that they offer? Some of the services that work with CDP, for example, how does a just giving a random example, how does a network load balancer work, or how does a
Right,
transit
right.
gateway work?
Yeah, yeah.
So a basic understanding of things like this is definitely helpful. But to summarize, anything that an organization, an IT organization for that matter, has
Right, right.
skill right now can totally be utilized in CDP public cloud.
Cool. So we don't need to start from basically from scratch, right? We can bring our existing knowledge and just upgrade it into the cloud infrastructure. That's what you're saying,
Absolutely,
right?
from day
Cool,
one.
cool, cool.
From day one.
Nice. Not scary. So how about data warehouse and data lakehouse? Everyone is s- confused, right? Like I say before, what's data warehouse, data lake? Oh, now we have a lake house. So could you please give some kind of real explanation about that? Not like, yeah, I hope you can
Yeah.
explain.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So we don't really look at CDP public cloud as a data warehouse or a data lake house. The whole concept of a lake house is you should be basically able to do everything on your data under a single pane of a security layer. I should have the capability to do machine learning. I should have the capability to do real time streaming, ingestion of data, manipulation of data, querying of data. I should have a BI tool capability. I should have some sort of ACID capability for my underlying SQL database. CDP had it from day one. So we have our one of our mottos has been edge to AI. So we can do anything right from the collection of the data at the edge source all the way till machine learning and AI. Of course, doing a real-time streaming on it, doing data engineering on it, having a data warehouse to run your ad hoc BI analytical type of queries, and prepare your machine learning models on top of it and run AI. So it's kind of like in general, we don't like to use the term lake house because we have always been doing it since the inception of CDP public cloud, and we do it really well. We do it in a much cheaper, much faster, much better way than some of the guys that would like to use this term.
Yeah, yeah, because basically, from what you're saying, it's like about seamless experience, right? Like seamless, no silo. Because yeah, this a big deal, right? In enterprise silo, not only the organization but the bridging about the data itself. Oh, I want to do analytics. Sorry, wait a minute. Wait a minute, you need to access to this, you need to migrate the data and something like that. It's been painful, but if we don't need to know about the underlying itself and we just use the technology as is with our current workflow, I think it will be very great. No mumbo jumbo like cost and everything. Just use what works, right?
Yeah, and just to add a little bit more context to that, Park Valley, we also believe that a product like ours, which is basically capable of doing pretty much everything that an IT organization desires to do, we provide all those services. We don't want to be categorized as a specific or a leader in a specific component, but we see ourselves as leaders in pretty much the entire data lifecycle, as I said, from your collection of data at the edge uh, all the way till machine learning and AI. So we don't focus on point solutions. We focus on the entire life cycle of the data, making sure that it is under that single pane of glass of security as well.
Cool, cool. So I'm dying to ask this one. How can I do that? How can I do that? Can you show me? That's
Oh,
the
100%. 100%.
Can you show me, please?
Yeah.
I'm
Uh,
dying to see. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through some of the important stuff from our point of view on how CDP public cloud looks like. What does it feel like? How can I click a button, as I was just saying? Whether am I saying the right thing or not? Is it really that simple? I mean, can you literally just click a button and start doing things? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically show my screen. I hope you can see my screen. Great. So what I'm going to do now is, so this is, as I said, Park Valley, and we basically don't like to call ourselves a lake house or a data warehouse. We like to call ourselves the enterprise data cloud because we can pretty much do everything under the hood. This is so for users who register on the Cloudera website and who want to give Cloudera public cloud or CDP public cloud a trial. Once their trial is ongoing, they're going to see a screen like this. Um, so you see a bunch of services sitting on the top. So you've got a data hub cluster, you've got a data flow service, you've got a data engineering service, you've got a data warehouse, an operational DB, and a machine learning service. Um, so as I was explaining earlier, Park Valley, I
Mhm.
had mentioned that CDP offers managed services. So barring the data hub cluster, everything that you see on the top screen or the top side of the screen is a managed
Uh-huh.
service offered by Cloudera. Um,
Wow.
Data hub clusters can be looked as the cloud version of a legacy HTTP or a CDH clusters, but with
Mhm.
more agility, with more specific templates that individual business groups or business use cases want to leverage. It also has the feature of, it's a transient cluster basically. So I only use it when I actually need it. I don't have to keep it
Oh,
running for
nice, nice.
24/7,
S-
which of course
So
in
basically, I can do it on demand. If I don't need it, I can discharge it, like just like
absolutely.
that. Cool, cool,
Absolutely.
cool.
And pretty much everything that you see on the upper part of the screen, from data hub all the way till machine learning, this is
Nice,
pay as you go model. So I only use it when I need it. If I don't need it, I can totally tear it down. And maybe I need it after 2 days, I create it all over again, thereby saving not just the cost, but also achieving that cloud agility that pretty much everyone talks about.
nice.
So,
Every CFO should like this one.
yeah,
We can minimize budget with this one for sure. I can see how it minimizing costs if doing right.
exactly,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the whole idea. Use it only when you need it.
Yeah.
All right. So I will now Parkwelly click on the management console. So management console is where you look at management console as your entry to CDP public cloud.
Mhm.
So I'll click on management console. I have a few environments running here. I won't get into much technical details because I want to keep it more interactive. So please feel free
Sure.
to stop me wherever
Sure.
you feel like and ask me
Sure.
questions. So I have created this one environment for myself,
Mhm.
and it's, as you can see, it's pretty interactive. It shows you the name of the environment. It shows you which cloud provider am I on. It
Wow,
shows me
multiple cloud, right? Multiple cloud.
exactly. This is exactly what we
Cool,
were
cool.
talking about, right?
Right,
Multi-cloud,
right.
cloud.
Yeah.
So I've got two environments running in AWS. I've got one running on Azure, actually four running on AWS, and I've got one running on Google Cloud.
Hmm.
And if you would also look at different runtime versions, I have got a
Okay.
variety of runtime versions.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I can pick and choose the runtime version that I would want to run on a specific cloud of my choice.
Cool.
Um,
So we don't afraid about the conflict between the cluster and everything because we use a different stuff and versioning. So it's basically isolated, right? Each
Absolutely
cluster. Cool,
isolated.
cool, cool, cool.
So this particular screen gives you again a single view of, or a bird's eye view of your entire environments that you would create. So when I say environments, I could have a non-production environment running, I could have a dev environment running,
Wow.
and I could have a production environment running, and I can basically navigate, view all those environments from this particular screen. So I don't have to
Nice.
open multiple browsers, I don't have to open multiple URLs to go and view and have a look at those individual clusters or those environments. So this particular
Right,
screen
right, right,
gives you the
right.
single view of the
Nice.
individual
Nice.
environments.
Yeah,
Um,
basically, I don't need to log into my GCP because it's handled by another department and everything. It's okay. Like the role is, I can segregate get a role easily, right?
Exactly.
Cool.
So
It's cool.
that's a great point because I don't want uh, somebody, as we were as we were talking about those cloud skills and those skills that are needed for CDP public cloud. I can totally segregate the duties here. I really don't need somebody who has
Mhm.
to understand cloud or the intricacies of cloud to run anything on CDP public cloud. I want my typical data scientists, my data engineers to only understand what they understand right now. And cloud can totally be taken care by a different team. And so
Okay.
basically, there's no interference of two different departments here. Unlike how you would see in a typical HTTP or a CDH setup, or maybe a setup of these similar natures, where you would need to understand some of the other IT skills along with your core skills of data science and data engineering.
Right. Nice. So because it's like autonomous team, but can collaborate, right?
Can collaborate, yes, can collaborate when needed. Otherwise, they can totally work on individual items.
Nice, nice. Let's do this.
All right. So this is I'll just click on my environment. So an environment is a logical collection,
Mhm.
or the so an environment is what is needed to start running your compute workloads. So an environment consists of a few components. So we have got a data lake, and this data lake should not be confused by the legacy data lake where you have your data sitting inside it. This data lake
Uh-huh.
is totally different. This is what we refer to as the SDX layer, the shared data experience layer, where we
Uh-huh.
have services like Atlas running for your lineage, Ranger
Mhm.
running for your security and your governance, and we
Uh-huh.
have got Hive Metastore running for your metadata.
Right.
So
So even if I have a different cluster, my department, finance, and HR department, when I destroy my cluster, the data is still there, and I can bring
absolutely.
another cluster to access. Okay, that's the meaning of data lake right now. So, okay, cool, cool,
Exactly. So
cool.
data lake is only holding your metadata in terms
Okay.
of your security governance lineage.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can have as okay, I don't even need to explain. As you can see on the screen, there are four data hub clusters running. All those four
Yeah.
data hub clusters are managed by a single SDX layer. I don't need to
Nice.
provision multiple SDX layers or multiple data lakes to create multiple data hubs or data warehouse experience or data engineering experience. So you can look at a data lake with a one to many relationship. I need one data lake with many compute workloads running on top of it.
Yes, yes. Because the data basically should be shared. It should be
Exactly.
democratized, right? But
Exactly.
within the role, we need to maintain the governance and security. So it's all good.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
Exactly. So all the computes share the same workload, also the same SDX layer. So I've touched upon briefly on Data Hub. I just want to basically talk about the SDX layer a little bit more, just because maybe some people coming from legacy CDH might not be familiar with how a Ranger looks like or how an Atlas looks like. Because in a legacy CDH, we had Cloudera Navigator and Sentry, which was taking
Mhm.
care of your lineage and your security governance. Whereas from a HTTP, somebody joining us from a HTTP background completely understands what I'm talking about. So I'll quickly click on the Cloudera Manager link. Um, the UI has changed a bit for people who are coming from a legacy CDH background. Um, it's again, as I said, it's the SDX layer. So we keep it very simple. We only have services which are required for your SDX layer to work. So as you can see, for metadata, we have the Hive Metastore. For your lineage, we have got Atlas, and we have got Ranger running for your security and your governance. So pretty simple description of what an SDX layer is. UI, we have made a few changes, looks a little better than what CDH had. So my purpose of showing this was not a lot of things have changed. So from a familiarity point of view, people are still going to relate to how a CDP data lake looks like in comparison to a CDH Cloudera manager. What I'm going to do now, Park, really, if it's okay, I'm going to quickly
Yeah.
move on to Ranger. This is
Cool.
something
Yeah. The
that is
governance stuff, right?
exactly,
Security and everything. Yeah, yeah. This most important part for
exactly.
governance.
So amazing tool, amazing technology inside Ranger.
Mhm.
For people who might not be familiar, it gives you fine-grained access control over your
Mhm.
data.
Mhm.
You can decide which users, which groups have access to your data. You can decide what kind of masking do you want to
Mhm.
implement on your data sets. You can do row level filtering. You can do tag based policy creation. So you can tag your data, and you can say, if I find this tag in my data, then do this action. So if I say, if I find date of birth in my data, then basically hide date of birth from all the users who are going to eventually query the data or view the data. Amazing tool, very powerful tool. I've created certain policies here just to familiarize people who would have seen or for your interest, Park Welly. So
Mhm.
there are a few policies that I have already created. The UI is pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. All it says, If I just use the first policy, which is policy ID 8, policy name all global, it says these users, this particular group, along with these users, have access to everything globally. So they have access to anything that you can imagine on CDP public cloud. Uh,
Cool.
if I just talk about this particular policy, which is policy 12, all database, these particular users have access to all the databases. If
Nice,
it's
nice.
very simple, I can click a button, I can add a new policy here, and I can
Mm-hmm.
define what kind of users have what kind of access to. So I can go at a database level or a URL or a Hive service. I can say,
Mm-hmm.
if I select database, I can say uh, which table. If I want to give access on a particular column, I can give that. So literally, I can go down to the level of a column, and I can decide what is going to be visible to users and who can see it
Nice.
and who cannot see it. Um, yeah, I'll just quickly go back. I'll cancel this. Um, the other thing that I'm was very keen is we often hear about data masking for GDPR compliance, for PC2 compliance, for APRA compliance here in Australia, and we basically get these questions a lot. How can I mask my data? It's very
Mm-hmm.
simple. You come here, create a policy for yourself, provide the
Yep.
description, and here you can literally just, so I don't have it here, but I can literally choose from these different options to mask my data. I can also have a custom code that will be used for masking, but it pretty much gives you all the available options to mask your data. Very powerful, uh, very
Mm-hmm.
compliant with the modern um, governance policies that are coming around in different parts of the world. So you can choose which particular standards do you want to meet with. And this was the third one that I was talking about, row level filtering. So I can literally create a policy here. I can define on which database, on which Hive table do I want to add a filter. So if for example, I wanted to say, do not show me any date of birth. So I can literally say, uh, for this particular user, I can select these users from here. I can say access type is everything, and I can say apply this row level filter on it. Either show them or don't show them. So very powerful. This is one of the most important products in our stack when it comes to security and governance. I'll quickly move on. I think I'm eating up a lot of time. Um, uh, I wanted to also talk about Atlas. Atlas is our metadata and lineage product. So the whole purpose of having Atlas in the stack is, a lot of times customers would ask, how do I track lineage of my data? I want to understand what has happened to my data since the time I picked it up, and till the time I ran a specific ETL on top of it, and I
Mm-hmm.
ran a query. So Atlas is the tool that basically provides you with the entire lineage, right
Uh-huh.
from where you picked up the data and where have you landed the
Okay.
data. So if I am
Yeah,
picking
yeah.
up from S3,
So
it's going to say,
because I need to know about the quality of the data, so I need to check, right? So yeah, it's very
yeah, you
important.
can, exactly. You can create your own glossary here. You can do a data classification. You
Mm-hmm.
can have a look at the schema of the data from Atlas. So it's very powerful.
Cool, cool, cool.
Um, I also wanted to quickly talk about you. Park Valley had
Yeah.
uh, wanted to understand on data warehouse and how quickly can I do
Mm-hmm.
it. I'm just going to quickly touch upon three data services. So
Yeah.
first one, which is of course of prime importance, is data engineering. Now, data engineering, as I mentioned earlier, it comes with a um, Kubernetes based experience. It has Spark 3 available. It's got
Yeah.
Airflow for your scheduling. Uh,
Oh. You have Airflow now, so
Yes.
it's really
So it
cool.
comes,
It's really cool. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I forgot to add one more thing. It also comes within an inbuilt SMTP capability. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to write a separate piece of code, or you don't have to write a custom logic for
Uh-huh.
adding SMTP capability. So if you want to monitor your jobs via Airflow, if you want to trigger an email, if the jobs are failing or
Okay,
running, you can
okay, okay.
literally do it
Okay,
out of the
so
box.
yeah, it's not totally close or lock in. We can interrupt with other outside world.
Exactly, exactly.
Cool, cool. Nice.
So very simple. There is a CDE service that I need to create for a virtual cluster. Now, virtual cluster is where your compute workloads will be running. So whenever I'm going to run a query, whenever I'm going to run a job, I'm going to run it on a virtual cluster. But to create a virtual cluster, I need to create a service. It's very simple. I give it a name. I provide the environment which we just saw. I can literally choose from tens of
Wow.
options here, and I
Wow.
can and based on your work.
Without going into the AWS dashboard, GCP console
Absolutely,
and everything. I just okay, cool, cool, cool.
absolutely. I can
That's
choose my
huge.
own
Yeah.
workload types. I can also use SSD instances, and
Nice.
we also have support for spot instances. So spot instances is, as a lot of people would understand, to save cost. I can literally choose spot instances, and I can
Mhm.
provide the scaling for spot instances. So I can go all the way from 1 to 100. Um,
Nice.
it's
Nice.
totally up to me if I want to run my workload on a on-demand setup or a spot instance setup. Um, as you can see, it's pretty self-explanatory. I can select the subnets
Mhm.
in which I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to enable it.
Oh.
Very important. Um, we recently got this capability of spot instances. When I say recently, it was like last 3 to 4 months. And we have seen when it comes to cost on CDP public cloud, and for that matter, any product or any technology that's running on cloud, a lot of people
Mhm.
get concerned about the cost. But with
Yeah.
the advent of spot instances, we have seen cost
Yep.
go down dramatically.
Right. Right.
So very cool feature. So this is data engineering. I'll quickly go to data warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of people are very curious on how a data warehouse looks like. It's again very similar to how, in terms of setting it up, how it is to
Uh-huh.
set up a virtual warehouse. A virtual warehouse in CDP public cloud terms, Spark Welly, comprises of two major components. So you can, based on your requirements, you can either have a
Mm-hmm.
Hive LLAP virtual warehouse, or you
Uh-huh.
can have an Impala
Right.
based virtual warehouse. As you can see on my screen, I've got a few Impala virtual warehouses, and I've got a
Uh-huh.
Hive virtual warehouse. Again, creation of this as simple as it can get. I provide the name of my virtual warehouse. I choose what is the type. So I've got Hive or Impala. I provide the database catalog, which is your Hive meta server.
Okay. So that's where my schema live, right?
Sorry, what was that?
The database catalog is where my schema live, right?
Correct, exactly. So this is your Hive meta store. This is where your schema is
Nice.
living. Correct, exactly.
Right.
We provide
Oh.
multiple t-shirt sizes based on requirements. So if you have complex queries running, complex joins, aggregate queries, you can decide which virtual warehouse or what size of virtual warehouse is going to suit your requirements. So for example, if I select a virtual warehouse of 2 nodes, I can literally set the scaling over here. So there are 2 nodes that are going to be running to execute my query, but I can always, in time of new workloads coming, new queries coming, I can always tell the virtual warehouse to
Yeah,
scale
yeah,
up to
yeah,
20 nodes if I want to
yeah.
basically have that requirement.
This
Then
is
there are,
awesome because previously in my previous part, we sometimes we have an interactive query that bring down the cluster
yeah,
because the ETL still running. The most important is getting destroyed. So with this, I think we can isolate the workload, right?
exactly. So you can
Yeah.
have, it's this is very cool. You can have query isolation here. So you can have,
Wow.
if you
Cool.
believe you have got a very complex
Yeah.
tens of joins inside a query, you can literally select query isolation, and it's going to pick up that query and it's going to execute it in an isolated manner so that there's no resource contention happening.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and the other very cool feature about the virtual warehouse, which I think not a lot of products out there in the market have, is an
Mm-hmm.
inbuilt capability to use the data visualization tool. So Cloudera has its own data visualization tool, which is called Cloudera Data Viz.
Mm-hmm.
So CDW natively interacts or gets integrated with visualization tool. So you don't have to have external tools to connect with a high
Like,
important data
yeah,
to run
like
your
Tableau, or
exactly.
Click. Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
oh, nice,
So
nice.
you can
It's already
literally
built in.
yeah,
Nice,
it's
nice.
already built in. It's very powerful.
Yeah,
It's built
that's new.
on
That's
yeah, it's
new.
built on
Yeah,
state of the art
yeah.
algorithms. I don't want to get into much details here, but
Sure.
it's very powerful. It can literally integrate with your virtual warehouse, and you don't have to export your reports. You don't have to use
Mm-hmm.
JDBC or DBC connectors, or you can do pretty
Yeah.
much everything on this one
Right,
screen.
right. Yeah. No, no, no more install or something. So it's just like
Nothing
there.
needed.
Okay.
Absolutely nothing needed.
Cool.
So it's
Oh,
pretty cool.
wow.
You can
Awesome.
play around with this, have your settings the way you want to set it up, and once it is done, you can literally start querying your data. So amazing. Um,
Nice,
one
nice, nice.
one other Park Valley, the other
Mm-hmm.
one that I wanted to touch upon really quickly is machine learning. Again,
Mm-hmm.
excites a lot of people.
Yep,
This
yep.
has been so Cloudera had CDSW, Cloudera Data Science Workbench, but
Uh-huh.
CDSW uh, should not be confused with Cloudera Machine Learning. Cloudera Machine Learning is a different product, works on
Right.
different methods. Again, very simple. I can literally just provision a workspace by click of a button. I can specify my type of, so I can literally say Shashank. I can select
Mm-hmm.
my environment. I
Nice.
can click on advanced options. I can do CPU
Mm-hmm.
settings. So I
Mm-hmm.
can literally select the instance types. I can have
Right.
the CPU and memory visible in front of me. I can
Nice.
select the auto scaling range.
Whoa.
If I
There's a
want
GPU setting there. There's a
exactly,
GPU setting there. Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
exactly. So I can select whether I want to run GPUs or I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to run GPUs. I can choose the instance types. Again, I can choose the scaling range.
Yeah.
Um, I can enable governance on this. So when you enable governance on this, um, Atlas will get to know about the model lineage. So this was
Oh,
a
right,
very
right, right.
important feature that Cloudera added because a lot of times um, users like users like me and you would want to
Uh,
understand. Hey, I ran
yeah.
something on my model and I want to understand what happened with it. I want to track the lineage.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you can enable all this, and you're going to get not just the model matrix, but you will also see how the lineage of your model is looking on
Nice.
Atlas.
Yep,
Again,
yep, yep.
uh, very
Yeah,
powerful.
because model is just another data, right? It need to be
Exactly,
understand. We need to debug it, and everything is
exactly.
yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And I
Yeah,
can just access the data that already shared by the data warehouse, right?
yeah,
From
yeah,
this.
exactly.
Oh,
So
yeah,
so
nice.
Hey,
your
Shashank, Parkweli,
Oh,
sorry to
why
interrupt
not?
the
Are
excellent
you
conversation.
you're
I'm back to
coming?
interrupt again.
Oh,
Uh,
not again.
so I think one underlying principle I think one underlying principle is single copy of your data, bring in all the different types of data analytics on it. Single copy of your security and
Wow,
metadata. I
we
think
we
that's
can do this
pretty
all day long, Xiaoxiang. Yeah, I can't
yeah.
start
It was
looking at
fun.
this. It's very
Fun
awesome.
walking.
Yeah, it's very awesome.
Yeah, there are a bunch of questions in the community, so I thought we'll spend another 2 or 3 minutes to answer them while they are still here, and I think that'll be great. Shashank, I have a question for you. I think this is from Henry in the community. His question is, where does data cleansing and data prep usually happen in the data lifecycle? So what kind of
so
tools, what in the data services is used for that?
yeah, so there are multiple options. If you want to leverage something like a NiFi, you can have NiFi that could be used for your data cleansing. or you could also, if you are not leveraging NiFi, you could also have something like Spark that could do data cleansing for you. So you write a piece of code. You can basically decide on, for example, you can decide on the schema. You can decide on what kind of data do you want to drop. So there are multiple options of doing it. It totally depends on how your life cycle is and what kind of tools are available. But again, you can start with something like NiFi or Apache Spark. There are multiple ways basically to do this.
Yeah. It's
Thank
it's
you.
give us a lot of option, right? Because if we are in the department machine learning, we can just use what we know. If we are in the data engineering team, we can just use it what we know, right? So a lot of choices. It's good.
Yeah. The next question, I think I can take this easy question, Zamine. Can you please provide a PDF of the session? Yes, we will. We'll upload the slides to SlideShare. We'll post it as a comment to the Cloudera's channel. The live link that you're seeing, we'll just post it as a comment. Next question, slightly harder. Maybe I'll take it again. How will the future of Apache NiFi be? Maybe a short, quick update. There's a lot in there, but I'll try to unpack it quickly. So we have built a managed service on top of NiFi, which runs on Kubernetes. It is one of the data services that Shashank gave a teaser earlier in the session. But we put the link of this product on the chat box where you asked the question. There are a couple of modes to use it. And if you look at the business advantages, maybe we look at reducing cloud infrastructure costs when moving data, when preparing data, and so on. You can do auto scaling. You can manage and monitor your NiFi flows in a central place across any cloud provider, central dashboard. You can accelerate development with built-in flows, like ready flows. You don't need to build the entire flow yourself. Maybe there are catalog. We'll build catalog of common flows that you can just pull in and drop in and start building it. So NiFi is going faster and getting better in terms of how it utilizes the infrastructure.
Yep. And it's open source. So
yeah,
it's cool.
And as
All
a service,
good.
open source and as a service. Yeah. Next question. Maybe Shashank, if you want to take it. How will the provisioning of CDP happen in CDP public cloud and or private cloud? How do you provision CDP public cloud and then private cloud?
So it's very simple, literally very simple. All you got to do is you should have either your Google subscription with you, or an Azure subscription, or an AWS account. You basically just need to provide CDP with a couple of things. We have got quick start guides available. It's very self-explanatory. All you got to provide CDP is where do you want your data to be living. That's the only thing that CDP requires. All the underlying stuff, that is your VNets, your subnets, your security groups, all of that is taken care by CDP by default. So basic requirement: have a S3 bucket ready with you and an AWS account. That's it.
Nice.
And or
Nice.
Azure or Google Cloud
Correct. Yeah.
as well. Any cloud basically, right?
Any cloud.
Right.
Yeah.
Pakweli, I have a question for you. From your financial sector experience, what kind of
Yep.
compliance requirements usually come in?
Oh, for my current company, SciFin. Okay, so
In the
basically we need,
financial sector, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you
So
can
basically we
yeah.
need to keep everything that happen inside the system. What kind of trade is already happening, who's doing the trade, and how many times the turnover for the crypto exchange, because we need to report our activity to the exchange, to the counterparty, and we need also to reporting to the regulatory. So basically there are a lot of kind of a report, and every team has their own report and can't access another data, because we need some kind of independence, and also we need keep something private ourselves and something that can go public. So basically something that like role management like in Atlas maybe, and Ranger can combine. We can do a lot of bunch of good stuff there. So it's very great from the compliance point of view. From what I'm saying, it's awesome, man. It's cool.
Thank you, Pakweli. And the next question is kind of like partly answered by you, Pakweli. You just talked about Ranger Atlas combining to form,
Yeah.
solve compliance issues, right? So Shashank,
Yeah.
next question is a little bit of an extension to that. Does CDP have fine-grained access control, attribute-based access control? What are the level of security and governance you have on CDP?
Sure. So as I touched upon briefly when I was doing the demo as well, so CDP's Ranger that has fine-grained access control, access attribute-based access control. You can do row-level filtering. You can do masking of your data. You can decide basically who gets to see what. You can create multiple policies. You can do tag-based policies. So as I was saying, you can tag your data, and of course that data would be visible in on Atlas as well. And you can say, if I see this kind of a tag in my data, kick in this particular policy. So it 100% does and gives you what you need from a security and a governance point of view.
Nice. It's like a Cloudera navigator reimagined. It's doing a lot of things like a lineage, searching and everything. It's really end to
It's
end right
just
now.
a much better, more advanced, more modern
Yes.
version of that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
extended
Yeah.
from through the entire data lifecycle.
That's
Okay, the
awesome.
last question, and I think we can wrap up from there. And this is kind of from me as well. I'm plugging in a question there. Shashank, you talked about data replication using replication manager. But can you talk a little bit more about CDP public cloud, CDP private cloud? How do they interoperate? How do I set up a hybrid platform?
Good question. And often asked by a lot of.
Wait a second. Hmm.
Changes, or you don't have to do
Hmm.
infrastructure changes, or you don't have to do a lot of changes basically to move your code that's running on CDP private cloud to bring it on to CDP public cloud, because the runtime is the same, the base is the same. So in nutshell, replication manager takes care of bringing in your data to CDP public cloud and metadata and the policies.
Nice.
The runtime being the same, it's literally lift and shift. You basically pick up your code from your CDP private cloud, plug it in into CDP public cloud, and start playing with it.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
very seamless. Yeah, it's very seamless.
Awesome. So
Awesome.
thank you, Shashank and Welly for joining us today.
Thank you,
I
Shashank,
think
for demo. That's very great. Thank you, Manoj, for inviting me.
awesome. And anyone on the line, if you want to try CDP, just go to trycdp.com, or you can scan the QR code on your screen now.
Nice.
You can just go to the page and do a test drive of CDP anytime. Thank you, everyone, for dialing in. And once again, Welly, thank you very much for your time
Thank
today.
you. Thank you,
Thanks, Bob.
Shashank. Thank you,
Take
Manoj.
care.
It's been a
Yeah.
great day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.